talk about establishing service connection.
Okay. Well, Craig, you got what? 4 or 5 ways to do that these days.
Let's start with the most popular one, in my opinion, direct service connection.
Direct service connection. It's as basic as it gets. Basically, what you're doing is something happened in service. You currently have a diagnosed disability, and then you got to show a nexus, or what I would call a bridge between the two, showing that what happened in service led to what you have now. Once you've done that, the VA service connects you, and then we're on talking about the important part, and that's getting the money you deserve, the proper rate.
When is the best time to file a direct service connection claim? Like
before you get out of service?
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
pretty much.
I agree. As soon as you get out.
VA claims are all about strategy. I preach and I teach strategy in my boot camp. Check it out at combatcraig.com.
However, I will say, I mean, we've had vets, we've taken vets from the 1950s and service connected them for psych issues. We've taken vets, psych issues I think are the longest standing. It's hard for the VA to break, but I mean, even back claims. I've won back claims back to the 70s on service connection where it's like, hey, this happened in service. And sure, something might have aggravated it since then, but it's
we have explanations. We can address what happened in 65 and 92. And
but those aren't claims you want to do yourself. The claim you want to do yourself is what Craig said. Get out of service, your back hurts, you file it, you go from there, you get the direct service connection.
Yeah, in service or 1 year when you got out. And then that moves us on to the next one, which is secondaries. What are they? Why are they so much easier to win, especially if you've been out for longer than a year, really, but a year to 50 years?
Well, let's go with that back example. And this secondaries are so important, okay? So secondary service connection, basically that is just your service-connected disability caused a second one, okay? So for a back disability, what we see all the time is radiculopathy. Essentially, for a lower back, it would be pain running down the right leg, the left leg. It could be burning pain. It could be numbness. It could just be loss of feeling altogether. And the VA rates those separate from the back. They give you a secondary service connection. So instead of just having 1 rating, you have 3. And here, to me, Craig, is why it's so important. I see this with spine and diabetes the most, in that a spine disability, if you have a 20% rating, to me that says you're in a hell of a lot of agony, because the VA sucks at rating spines. They rate them
10%.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So 20's high. Right.
20's high, but if on top of that, then you get your right leg rated at 20 or 30, your left leg at 20 or 30, and let's say you have a bladder problem.
And a bilateral factor on there as well.
And bilateral factor. Yep. And a bladder problem that's a 40% rating. All of a sudden you go from 10, 20% up to 60, 70, 80, possibly 100. So that's why secondary is so important, and it's something you need to focus in on, because they'll give you, again, for that back, they'll give you that, okay, sure, service connected, here's 10%. And if you look at their rating code, it's just hard to get a proper rating, I think, just for that.
So the main difference, the way I understand it, direct service connection and secondary is, if I've been out for 20 years and I file a claim, even if I'm not rated for anything, and I go for tinnitus or whatever.
If the VA is screwing around with your back pay and your effective dates and you want to challenge it, you might want to check out the sponsor of today's video, Hill and Ponton. Check them out at hillandponton.com.
The VA is going to be looking to blame my tinnitus potentially on the 19 years I've been out, not the couple of years I was in or whatever. Secondaries can happen right now. We could be having this video and you could develop a secondary condition.
I could.
Right now you're probably developing a little bit of a gas, maybe a headache, right? And like it literally happens like that. So you don't need to explain all the way back to service, and you don't need service treatment records.
Right. And what he says is key, service treatment records, because that's how the VA loves to screw over people.
Because nothing's in there.
We didn't find anything in your records. But now it's like, no, you diagnosed me with this back disorder. My legs are killing me through radiculopathy. Service connect that.
Let's move on to, PreExisting claims, VA claims based on aggravation. And just to use an example, flat feet. I think I remember in MEPS, they had me down as flat feet. But now I have some other stuff.
Right. Well, so aggravation, that would be if you had a disability that pre-existed service, it was noted on your entrance exam, it was still symptomatic, DOD basically said, okay, we know that you have this, but we're gonna let you in anyway. If you can show that that disability was aggravated above what the normal curve would have been of that disability, and most disabilities are gonna get worse, but something happened in service that bumped it up, at that point you can get rated for the difference. the difference between whatever the baseline was coming in and what you had now. So if baseline, let's say, would have equaled 10%, and whatever the disability equals 30, then they'll give you the 20, the difference.
All right, let's put this to the test. We're going to use feet.
I'm not. I know I'm here, but I'm not smelling your feet, Craig. I only go so far.
Let's say that I have a high 20% rating for my back, and I want to file a claim for my feet. And it was noticed in my service record. So I can go direct service connection, I could go secondary, or I could go pre-existing. Me, I'm going secondary. What's your thoughts?
I like secondary a lot better if a doc's saying, yeah, your back's messing up.
And granted, you need to have the doc.
Right, right.
You can't say, I'm going to file it like this. You need the nexus, and and he probably needs to address. Yep, it was noted when he was 12, and yep.
Well, if it was noted before service, then yeah,
he should address it, or
he should address it, but just say,
it was there, no big deal.
Right, there, no big deal, and it's as likely as not it's caused by the back because the back's causing this compression or causing him to walk differently, and so that's what you'd want. Yeah, I agree with you. The secondary is the cleanest, but then direct after that, I'd say.
So, okay, but pre-existing would be the third.
Be the last, yeah.
Okay, so it's
because they're going to dock you. They're going to take you down.
Yeah, no, and it just seems like a shitty claim when people ask me about it. It's like I don't even want to talk about them. It's just shitty. They're secondaries.
Right. That's what I get.
It makes sense. What about presumptive service connection? And we don't really need to. Let's just talk about presumptive, and then we'll do an example.
Well, yeah, presumptive is basically where the VA takes away one of the requirements, which is almost always the nexus. So if something happened in service, you're exposed to something, usually you're exposed to something, and you have a current disability, they say, boom, it's related. All you have to do is show that you were at that place or you had that MOS or whatever, and you have that current disability that they presume, and you don't have to show a nexus, which means you don't have to get a medical opinion to show that they're related, which just takes, to me, a lot of headache out of it.
So you said almost always the nexus. Is there a situation, put you on the spot, where it's not the nexus and it's something else?
Well,
if you've reviewed all the medical evidence and you know you're missing something to establish service connection, like a diagnosis or a nexus, you might want to check out my med team. There's a link in the description. They can help you with your missing medical evidence.
Because like the diagnosis you still need to have and the symptoms. And that needs to be, like a doctor needs to write that shit down, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. It's basically almost always is the nexus because it's, Gulf War, you can kind of argue that you're in the Gulf, you don't have a diagnosis right now, but you have all this, this constellation of symptoms.
If these,
so that could be.
Yeah, okay, so that would probably be that makes sense. Yeah, so it's essentially the presumption replaces the nexus in
exactly.
Yeah, whatever, 99%.
Right.
And might be some weird stuff going on. So let's use I'm a Gulf War veteran, allergic rhinitis.
Right.
That's on the part of the PACT Act, or was it prior to that?
It just came out explicitly on the PACT Act.
Okay. So I have allergic rhinitis. I want to file a claim. I could do direct service connection. Pre-existing, we already agreed. Basically bullshit. I could do secondary.
Not bullshit, but not easy. How about that? He says potato, I say potato, all right?
I think we're in agreement that, no, we're not in agreement. That's fine. So allergic rhinitis, direct, secondary, presumptive.
I like these tests. He gives me these tests.
Using the feet is the last one in our hypothetical veteran situation. Presumptive is I'll let you.
No, I agree. I mean, one of the things we both try to teach, if you take this anything away from us, path of least resistance. And here, presumptive, no doubt. Yep. Just get that service connected and then focus on getting the money you deserve through the rating.
And this also kind of addresses the money. There's places where I have no problem spending the money. And I know you don't want to spend the money until you have to, which is fine. Like a lot of people don't have money. The veteran is spending it up front. Yeah. And I just know you're going to be spending it most likely one way or the other. With the presumptive, you don't have to even get the nexus.
Right. You don't have to get the nexus from the doc, which is, money saved for you and honestly headache.
But playing devil's advocate, your VA doctor could be downplaying your symptoms, and that's not going to help you out with a 0% rating for allergic rhinitis, which happens a lot.
Right. Well, so that's one where, again, let's get the service connection first.
Yep.
And then if you want to spend the money, I'm all about that. Let's spend the money on getting a real a thorough doctor to look through and give you time to talk about all the symptoms you have and write that out thoroughly, because that's where you get the money. If it's presumptive, we don't want to waste our money on getting a nexus that doesn't need to exist. You know?
Well, I was talking more like a medical opinion or a DBQ.
Right. Well, same thing. It's the same thing. DBQ or
right.
hand.
An independent medical opinion
Right.
is the right. So yeah, let's get points on the board, even if those points are 0 points.
Exactly.
Just don't make it not service connected.
Right. That's what we want here. Yeah.
All right, 1151 claims. 1151 is actually out of like USC,
Yeah, it's out of
the US code, right? So what is a 1151 claim?
Well, like we do with almost everything else in VA law, we have to suspend our thoughts of reality here. Okay. So
Thoughts suspended.
an 1151 claim is essentially saying you were service connected for something that the VA did negligently. Okay, so you prove that the VA did something wrong, and all of a sudden you get service connection compensation for it. So it's like you got direct service connected compensation for something that the VA did. Now, the rules are different. The most common place we see these are with doctors, where they perform a surgery and it goes horribly wrong, and it goes out, and whatever went wrong is outside of the scope of what the doctor told you could have gone wrong. Or
there's a 7% chance this might go wrong or whatever. Yeah.
Or there's sometimes the doctors don't even tell you that. They don't even inform you what
risks are.
The risks are, and
right.
You can't make an informed decision. And so at those points, you can sue the doctors. And if you win, you get service-connected compensation under the VA model. So somehow, your back gets hurt in an operation when it shouldn't have, and all of a sudden you're being paid as if it were service-connected.
So you're suing the VA. Is this like it's not a criminal lawsuit?
No,
it's not civil. Is it a tort?
There are 2 times when you don't need a nexus: when you file a claim while you're still on active duty, like a BDD claim, or when you're in the 1-year presumptive period. Any other time, you need a nexus. You also need a strategy. Check out my boot camp and contact my med team if you need a nexus.
Well, that's a really good point. There's the Federal Torts Act that you could sue them. You could sue the VA through that in a federal court.
So that's not 1151 claim.
No,
That's totally
1151 is in the VA, basically.
different rabbit.
Different rabbit. Yeah.
Different rabbit hole.
Exactly. And that one, you got to get a civil trial lawyer, and those are pretty hard because you go before a judge, not a jury, and it's kind of a pain.
So 1151 claim. When you file that, it's just like a normal claim. Like, how do you?
Yep.
Is that probably should lawyer up? I mean, you're literally. I mean, to prove that, let's just use your example. The doctor didn't tell you something, or he cut off the wrong limb. You don't
need a doctor. I mean, you should not need an attorney for that. If they cut off the wrong limb, which we're laughing about, it happens.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, they should pony up the money on that, because that's pretty obvious.
What they should, but yeah. All right, well, let's say it's not that obvious. You're basically a layman calling out a doctor about something that's a little, it's strong to you because it's affecting you, but like, where do you get the evidence like the doctor didn't do his job? I just see VA doctors covering other VA doctors, or the nurse covering.
Exactly.
Is that going on?
That's probably going to happen. And you and I disagree on this, and that they're going to get a C&P exam. Okay. They're going to get one of their doctors to give you an opinion. My thought is I always let them go ahead and do that because I can't stop them. And then I get the last opinion. I get my doctor to not only write an opinion about what happened, but then say why their C&P exam was so crappy. And that way I have a pretty thorough evidentiary basis to come back against them on.
It's funny. It just dawned on me, probably because you're here and the way you just said that. I just want to bring all the evidence up front, but now I understand why you do that. You just said it.
It's sandbagging.
Because they're going to give you the C&P exam anyway.
Right.
So you might as well do whatever you're going to do, because you're going to do it whether I have an opinion or not.
Right,
you're still going to we're not going to look at it, or we like our guy better or whatever. And then you get to come back with the last word. It just dawned on me why you do that. But
what I used to do is that we would send in the fully developed claim with our doctor, and it's like, here you go, VA, make the decision. It's all right there. And they go get the C&P exam anyway. So then I have to go back to my doctor and say, okay, give me an opinion on their opinion. It's just a waste of money, and it's a waste of,
But you're still going to encounter that, because now we're moving into supplemental claims, right?
Yep.
And now you do bring your independent medical opinion up, and then you're still going to another C&P exam.
Yeah, it's
kind of, right?
So frustrating. Yeah.
So, Yeah, I understand why you do it. I
Right.
still like bring the evidence up
I know.
and be clear. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's fine. I can like what I like, and
yeah.
I like you. I like that you came and visited me. And
you
I
can be
don't-
wrong. It's fine. And I still like you.
And that's a good point. I don't argue claims for a living. You do. So I have my way, but I've only argued my own claim. So good point.
But he does do a good boot camp, and you guys might want to check that out on his website.